Assalamu alaikum. My name is Maria, and I converted to Islam 1 year ago. I'm from Boulder, Colorado. I was born here. I went to school here my whole life. Both of my parents, they're actually from South Africa. They immigrated here. Neither of them are religious. They're both atheists, so they don't really believe in God. I have one brother. He's studying music at the University of Colorado. He is Catholic, so he's not Muslim either. Before I converted, I didn't really believe in God. I didn't really have a religion. I didn't really have a faith, I guess you could say. I kind of grew up as my parents taught me, so I didn't really believe in God, and I didn't believe in really any religion at all.
We didn't raise our children in any faith. We didn't take them to church. Neither of them were baptized in a Christian church. And the American school system is very good because we sent them to public schools. It's non-sectarian, non-religious. They're exposed to those things. They can learn about that.
Talked about religion, we kind of talked about it almost negatively, I guess. We didn't really, before, I didn't really see religion as a good thing. I thought it was something that caused a lot of problems, you know, especially in the world with wars and stuff. I viewed it mostly negatively.
We discuss everything, including religion, as a family. We have done since they were small, and we are not against religion at all. Just because we don't have faith does not mean we're against it.
So I read the Quran, and I read a lot of books, and I talked to a lot of people. I guess the first time I said the Shahada, I was by myself. It was, you know, that point where I realized that everything made sense. And that's when I first said it was by myself, you know, really. I mean, that's when I first felt it.
Maria and I didn't ever discuss her converting to become a Muslim. We discussed the Muslim faith, and we discussed other faiths.
I didn't ever really talk too much about it with my parents, you know, just because I know that they weren't really keen on religion. I think the first time they realized that I was really getting serious was the last Ramadan, and I fasted, you know, for the whole Ramadan. It was my first Ramadan. It was really hard, but, you know, I did it, and that's when they kind of realized, oh, she's serious, you know. After I converted, I kind of felt like I had a clean slate, you know, I could kind of start things over. Well, when I first put the veil, it was definitely very hard. It was really hard. Classes, they were difficult. You know, I felt like everybody's staring at me. You know, there are other girls here that wear the hijab, but I think right now I'm the only American girl here wearing hijab.
Having Maria in my class wearing the veil, it's different. It's not like most students, but I like it. I like that she's very confident in her religion and can display it through how she wears it, and she's not afraid to tell people right away that I'm Muslim and this is what I believe. And I think it's great, and I think it's really pretty a lot.
I definitely feel proud. I feel good. I feel like it's part of me now, you know. I feel better about myself that I'm wearing it.
The Muslims that I've known have been very strong in their faith and practice their religion very regularly. They get up early and they pray and they incorporate it into their lives. So when I see someone wearing the hijab, I usually assume that they're a very religious person and very strong in their faith, especially since they're able to display it proudly like that around campus, especially on a campus like this where it's mostly people that have Christian background.
When I found out Maria had converted to Islam, it was a surprise for me. I mean, I'd seen her wearing the headscarf for a while, but I assumed it was just a fashion statement on her part, like I would wear a bow tie. You know, it's just something I choose to do. Then she told me she had actually converted, and I was surprised because she'd never really, at least to me, she'd never really expressed any interest in faith.
I get along a lot better with my brother now. You know, like any brother and sister, we've definitely had our fights. But we get along, definitely, and he's okay with the fact that I wear hijab, and he's accepted the fact that I'm Muslim, you know, and he converted to Catholicism before I converted to Islam, so he was already open to the idea of religion and open to the idea of, you know, a God, and so he was much more open, I think, to the fact when I converted.
I don't think her conversion really affected our relation all that much. We've been on the best of terms for a long time now. I mean, we used to fight and argue when I was a teenager and she was just becoming one, but not anymore. I think in some ways because we both do believe and participate in a faith, it's something that we share that is uniquely for us in our family unit, our holding to tenets of faith.
Yeah, we do talk about it. You know, we like to compare and contrast, you know, the two religions. And, you know, he thought it was interesting when I told him that in Islam, you know, we do believe in Jesus. You know, he was, like, shocked. He was like, I thought Muslims didn't believe in Jesus, you know. Mary, too, you know, because Catholicism is really about Mary. And so when I told him that Mary has her own chapter in the Quran, he was like, wow, you know, he was really impressed.
I think Maria has definitely made the right choice for her. I wouldn't try to influence her anyway, and I don't think I could if I tried. When we're out together, it can be very funny because I'm usually the goofy-looking one, and she's embarrassed to be with me, not the other way around. I mean, there's been times where we'll go to a restaurant, we're sitting down, and we'll be treated like a married couple, which is so weird because it's like no one seems to see the family resemblance. All they see is, you know, there's this guy and he's sitting over there, and then there's this girl and she's got a hijab on and so on, and well, maybe they're dating, maybe they're married or something. And we always get a good laugh out of it when someone makes that mistake because, you know, it's just so funny to us. You know, we're just brother and sister.
An American that converted, I think people, they get a lot of misperceptions about Islam. The media, newspapers, TV, like, they all portray Islam in a very negative way. And, you know, we weren't taught this in schools, university, nothing, you know, so I really had to learn it all on my own, and most people just never learn, so I think they just don't know a lot, and, you know, the media just portrays Islam in such a negative way. It makes it difficult.
As an American, I think sometimes the foreign view is skewed a little bit. I personally have no malicious feelings against Muslims because of their religion. I just think a lot of people assume that because we have the war in the Middle East right now, that we discriminate against people of Islamic background.
My view on religion is what I think was originally intended in this country when the Constitution was written, is that everyone gets to make their own choice. We are not going to hold people, and I really cleave to that belief that everyone should be entitled to whatever they believe. I have known many people of many different religions, and I've always been accepting. I've never come across someone I actively thought that their faith was a problem.
Then they ask me about Islam, and they say, you know, like, is it true you have to pray 5 times a day, you know, is it true, like, they ask me all these things, and a lot of times they ask me things that just don't make sense, you know, they're like, you know, they'll be like, all Muslims are terrorists or something, and so I just have to explain things to them because they don't know almost anything about Islam.
Most people just don't know enough about it. The people that do hate or do discriminate, they just don't know enough about the culture, the religion, to be able to differentiate between people that are terrorists and just people that are Islamic background.
I would definitely say that I'm proud to be an American as well as proud to be a Muslim. A lot of people think that those two things can't coexist. You know, they think that you can't be an American and be a Muslim at the same time. But I found that that's definitely not true. You know, I do keep a lot of, like, my American traits, while at the same time, you know, embracing Islam and, you know, forming a new identity around Islam, but still incorporating my American values and my American way of life. My message to other people would be just to look at other people like they are yourself. You know, just know that not all Americans fit the stereotypes that you see on TV. I would say that most of America does not think about Islam in the way that you might think. We do see, some people anyways, do see Islam not as a bad thing.
In the U.S., there's a lot of different religions that are here, and we all get along, you know, all side by side. And I think my message is that in the U.S., although there's a lot of people who make a bad stereotype, a lot of them are very tolerant and open-minded. I'm sure that there's a lot of people in the Muslim world that are just the same. And I think if we can all get together and work together, we'll make this place a better place to live in.
Religion often tends to divide people, but if we can understand that it's just a faith in a greater good and a greater being, then we can all exist together and just learn to love life and appreciate the time we have here with each other as human beings.
Peace can't exist with all these different religions, you know, and everybody doesn't have to be the same religion. We can all still manage to get along and coexist and live together and live peacefully and have a productive society with people of different religions. It's a good thing to have people with different religions because you get different views, you get different ideas, you know, and that's really the most important thing when you're trying to have a successful community.
I think having a Muslim daughter is, it has opened my eyes to the good, positive things that exist in Islam, and I would like to think that Muslims could also open their eyes and see the good, positive things that there are in this country and the tolerance that exists here.
I try to find happiness like in my everyday life, you know. I mean, I'm busy, you know, I'm a student and I've got a lot of things to do and I rarely have like a lot of free time, you know, and so I just try to like take joy in the things I do every day, you know. I love my family a lot and they've been really supportive and, you know, I couldn't ask for a better family and I couldn't ask for better friends. I have some of the best friends in the world and I don't know, I'm grateful for everything that I do have, you know, and I try not to think about the negatives in life too much. I try to focus on the positives and stay optimistic.
When I was a child growing up back in the States, I had a wonderful Christian upbringing. My mother, my father to some extent, my siblings, my neighborhood, we were all from a pretty homogenous Christian upbringing. As time grew on, our family all independently had a breaking point from the church. It wasn't like we stopped believing in God or in Christianity even for that part. But we felt that something about the organized church didn't fit any of us. So that was when I went off in more of an exploratory mission of my own. And at that point I started searching about different religions, including Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. I stayed to, as it would seem, as the Ahl al-Kitab, without even knowing it. I didn't look in much beyond that. I was somewhat intrigued by going to North Africa, and I was offered a position in Tunisia. The community in the West wasn't easy for me to make that transition. Many of them said things about Africa or about very tribal regions and Arabs, and I didn't listen. I came anyways. When I was in university, I studied a bit of Islam, and I felt that Islam was something a bit pure but different. So I never had any bad thoughts of the religion or the people, but I felt it was way too different for me. It would have been maybe looked down upon by my community. It would have been a huge lifestyle change. It was much more strict than the loose style I was used to. So I learned a lot about the religion in the university, and I had interaction with Muslims in the university, and then also in Tunisia, in Dubai, in Bahrain, Oman, all over the Gulf as well. But nothing really caught my attention until I read a book by a man from Iowa. It's a state in the US, Iowa. He was living in the UK, I believe, and wrote a book called A Brief History of Nearly Everything. So it was a scientific book that mapped out basically what we know. And after I look at it, I'd say, wow, it's amazing what we know. Subhanallah, people really know a lot of information. And then at the end of the section, he'd always say, but this is less than 5% of what's actually out there. So I kept reading it. It's a huge book. It's something like, 800 pages or something. It goes through the whole history of the world. I had friends, mostly living here in Dubai and in the Gulf. Like I said, I lived between Dubai, Bahrain, Oman, Tunis, with a lot of visits to Egypt and other countries in the region. And I just asked all of them questions, to the point where people would tell me, stop asking questions because you're just going to stop yourself from making the next move in your life. If you're asking, like, why do women have to cover in a certain exact way, it's a negative question about the religion, instead of saying, why don't women cover in this way, or why is it natural that women look at this way? Look at the whole picture of everything in life. Don't just ask the questions that are weird about Islam and keep questioning that over and over again. And so I started learning a little bit more on my own at that point. I realized that me asking everybody else would only give me an impression of what they know, and what they might see as beneficial for me. But religion isn't about you and everybody else only. It's about you and your own search through your heart to find what really means something and what's going to better your life. As soon as I started doing that, I started almost like shaking, sweating, not in the moment, but when I would start to read in my own and start to learn in my own and start to be just alone in my room, and I felt this incredible pressure. And the society never made me feel pressure. I'm kind of an independent soul. I don't always feel pressure from the society, but all of a sudden I had this intense pressure. I don't know what it was. I bought a prayer rug. I was living in the Middle East at this point, so I had access to mosques, to information, to everything. I went and bought a prayer rug. I grabbed some books from this centers that would give you some English references. Went on the internet and started going to Wikipedia and everything and looking at more comparative information. And at some point I realized I'm not going to learn it all. There's no way to learn it all. You either have a moment, you take the moment, or you miss the moment. I think I dwelled on that for about a week. And then I just said, I'm not going to risk any of this for anything. I've always had so much faith. This is something new. But it's not different. It's new in a way, it's reborn in a way, but it's the same as I was born with. It's nothing different at all. And I said the Shahada at that point, all by myself, in my room, cornered, and tried praying as best as I could without really knowing anything. At that moment was when I really gave up. That was when I submitted. That was when I said, anything in this life is meaningless because it could all end tomorrow. And unless I prepare for what's going to happen after that, my life was without any meaning. It was just me having fun, living, enjoying, and it wouldn't have been substantive.
My parents raised me as Christian, but at the same time they raised me like a Muslim. They used to always tell me, don't do this, don't do that, not because we say so, but because Allah asks you not to do it. What I'd say to somebody who is not a Muslim watching this program, I believe that you're watching this program for a reason, because you want to know about Islam and you want to know what will happen to me. This is a big question that we have when we non-Muslims become Muslims, so that you can see Muslim women living normal, completely normal lives, and how much peace and that we have, and the joy that we have inside. Don't think about what might happen to you, but know what's going to happen to you is going to be wonderful. And listen to your heart and not listen to the others.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is William and I converted to Islam about a year ago. I was born in Dallas, Texas into a Christian family, and I grew up in a neighborhood that was almost completely white, upper class and upper middle class as well. And it was really, really sheltered. My family wasn't exactly as you would call ultra-religious, as what is a stereotype with many people in Texas. I'd been exposed to other religions at the time through my mom. Since we had gone through a divorce that was quite traumatizing, she had been forced to look for alternative spiritual means. So by the time I just realized, okay, I really need to find my niche to get into, my mom recommended that I take this test online that would recommend which religion you belong to, or you most closely match up to. So I took it, and I was quite surprised to find that Islam was number 2 on the list, about 98% compatibility. I really didn't see it as that interesting as Islam. To me, Islam was something like, to stereotypically say, foreign to me. I'm like, oh, that looks quite interesting. So I started looking into Islam. So I looked it up on Wikipedia. I started reading about the basic articles of faith, the restrictions, what you had to do and stuff, and I found myself in agreement. I was like, this makes a lot of sense. I agree with this, and this seems very, very plausible. I believe that Jesus, rather than being a son of God or even God, was just a teacher, an important teacher to take from. So the notion of Jesus being a prophet, which basically is a teacher of God, really wasn't that foreign to me. That was something that, like, I already had believed in. At that point, I decided to pick up a Quran. So I picked it up and started reading it. And I read it, I'm like, this is amazing. This is something that explains everything that I've been looking for. I'm in total agreement with this. So I want to become a Muslim now.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Raquel and I converted a week ago to Islam. I was a police officer in the city of Detroit and I worked there from 96 until 2004 and I was shot in 2002. I was shot working on the job and I came very, very close to death, and I know that I have, you know, a new beginning, a new life, and I kind of didn't know how to follow God. I just didn't know what religion to believe in until I had met some Muslim friends that really talked to me and sat me down and explained a lot to me, and it's really, I decided that I needed to make my walk with God a priority. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. The change between my past life and this life, it's actually been gradually coming. Even before I converted to Islam, I was gradually, you know, I had stopped drinking and stopped going out, and, you know, a lot of different things had changed for me. And so, you know, for a lot of Americans it would have been really difficult, but I had stopped doing a lot of those things already. So when I came and, you know, converted to Islam, it was a little bit easier, I think, than most Americans, because I already had stopped a lot of that nonsense. It's time for peace and tranquility and growth with God. And I was very, very ready for the change. And I knew it was what was missing in my life.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Jamie, and I converted to Islam a week and a half ago. Before I became a Muslim, I was not a very conservative person. I was not a very good person. I modeled for Playboy. I did that for about 5 years, and during that time, I did a lot of drugs. And I thought, oh, I can do meth, and I won't get addicted because I'm just using it as a weight loss helper, and you know, I'll just use it every once in a while to just keep myself from eating so much. Yeah, right. I thought I was strong enough to not get addicted to a drug that absolutely addicts basically everyone who uses it. So I started doing meth, and I would probably give it a couple weeks, and then I got really addicted to it, and I did it all day and all night for 5 years. And it really brought me to a place of complete rock bottom. And my husband at that time had been doing it with me, and he started getting violent with me, and I was afraid for my life. So I decided to quit. I decided that that's not what I wanted for my life. And I told him, I said, I'm going to quit. And he laughed at me, and he said, yeah, right, you're not going to quit. And I said, you know what? I'm going to quit. I quit that day cold turkey. Never again looked back. I didn't have any type of rehab, no outside help, no support system. I had my husband laughing at me and trying to get me to do it again. After that, I had my little boy. My whole focus on life kind of changed. I had this wonderful little boy who needed a good mother, and I loved him so much. I wanted to change everything that I focused on for him. All right, guess what's going to happen? The train's going to take off. Like an airplane! Back in the day, I could do anything I wanted. I was very involved in basically the Hollywood scene that anybody would want to be involved in. A lot of people are surprised that I gave that up in order to become a Muslim. But the funny thing is when I said my Shahada, the desire to do all those things was completely taken away from me. I used to drink, did drugs, you know, all that stuff. I don't want to do them anymore. It's amazing to me that I really enjoy and feel peaceful in my heart about being a Muslim. I was born and raised non-denominational, charismatic, born-again Christian, and I didn't find answers for what I was looking for 31 years as a Christian. I never really felt God. I tried as hard as I could. I really did, and I never felt Him.
Salam alaikum. My name is Stephanie Parlov, and I converted to Islam in 1996.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Tim. I converted to Islam about 15 years ago. I was raised Roman Catholic. I was in an Italian family. 9 brothers and sisters. And Mom would take us to church every weekend when we were young.
My parents were Catholic, and it was a strong Catholic family. So we went to Sunday school, we went to church, we went to catechism classes, and it was a nice place to grow up. It was nice with my parents.
They got a lot of religion because I was very active in teaching and stuff, and they were taught Catholic religion, but I never objected to questions about other religions. I put a religion in them as a basis for their life. What they do with it is theirs. Religion is good for people. And I think that the people that have any kind of a religion will have a good time, a good life, and a understanding life, a fairness of what other people might need or do.
As I got older, I began to look at other things. I looked at atheism. I looked at metaphysical things. I looked at born-again Christianity, which was probably my strongest.
When Steph and I got married, we were both Christian. I really wasn't a churchgoer at the time.
And then Islam found me. Alhamdulillah.
I think that in Islam, something that sets it apart from other religions is the ease of it, the simplicity. I think that Islam takes you and your personality and it washes it off. When I became a Muslim, it was like somebody, I think that in Islam, like I said, it's kind of like you wake up from the nightmare that you were living, and you get to wake up and live the life that you were meant to live.
When he told me about the religion, the first thing he told me about the religion was that we don't believe in Jesus as the Son of God. We believe in him as the prophet. And when he told me that, I said, this is the religion I've been looking for. You know, because now I can finally pray to God. And I know that I believe in Jesus. I'm not saying I don't. I do believe in Jesus, but as a prophet. So that's how I became Muslim. When he told me to say the Shahada, I said the Shahada, and I became Muslim from that. The message I would like to say today is about Islam. Islam is a peaceful religion. It's not about wars. It's not about going out to fight. It's not about hatred. It's a peaceful religion. It's also a way of life. We live Islam daily by the way we pray, the way we eat, the way we speak, the way we talk about people, the way we think about other people. And every time we make a decision, we always have to think about the religion.
Alhamdulillah. I really feel happy when I converted to Muslim. I feel my life has been changed. I feel everything is meaningful and colorful in my life. So although at the beginning I didn't have any interest in learning Muslim information, in becoming a Muslim, but really one day I feel myself in another way. I like to become a Muslim.
There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was his messenger.
Feeling now, having been a Muslim for 5 months.
This is the best thing I ever did, being honest, the best thing, honestly.
What attracted you to the Muslim faith?
It was the science. Science was what made me really revert to Islam, because in my opinion God is unfathomable, therefore he has to give me something unfathomable to believe in it.
In 1993 I moved to Turkey with the company I was working for at the time that was looking to open new business there. This was a great time for me, the beginning of one of the happiest times of my life. Turkey was probably the place I've been looking for all these years. I don't know what it was I was looking for, but I somehow seemed to find it there. There I was in Turkey. I hate not to use the word, but it's a real place. It's a place where the foreigners are in a tiny minority and the Turks run their own country. And you have to learn the language, you have to learn the customs, you have to behave as they do. You have to fit in. And this was just fantastic. This was, I think, what I needed. I needed to be able to find something that was that I could taste and smell and feel. One of the important things that happened during that time was that although Turkey is ostensibly a country of Muslims, of course it's a secular democracy, as they say, which means that the Muslims have to make their own way inside their own country. They're not made easy for them by the government. And so they have to do their own thing. When it comes to Ramadan, I was kind of surprised. I was ready for the Gulf approach, where immediately there was no drinks, no food or anything in the daylight hours, and life took on a different style, you know, with the different working hours and everything. None of this. They didn't have it. In Turkey, the normal life goes on, and the life of the Muslim there is just to fit in around that situation. And I soon realised there was two sorts of people. You know, there were those that fasted and stayed with it, and there were those that didn't. What I found was I fitted in best with the group which was fasting. I have no idea why that was. That I can't explain to this day. So it was in the first few days of my first Ramadan in Turkey that I thought, let me try this. And so immediately I tried to see if I could undergo the rigours of fasting. A little tough at first, obviously, because I'd never done it in my whole life. In the office during Ramadan, obviously half the people were fasting and half weren't. People had lunch in the office, or they didn't. Those of us that didn't, we waited through to the day, and when the day finished, around 5:30 or so, and the sun was starting to go down, we would start to gather in the canteen. And of course there was that fantastic air of anticipation, and this was the first time I'd experienced this. This was the first time I'd found myself surrounded by people who were focused on the idea that the iftar was coming, and that they were waiting for it, and that it was special. The atmosphere was magic. The people were sitting around small bowls of dates, there were glasses of ayran, water, and people were waiting to have this. One guy with the radio pressed to his ear, because we were a long way out of town, we were in the countryside somewhere. A guy was waiting for the adhan on the radio, and eventually it would come, and he would say, "Yalla, it's now." And we would all dive on the dates, and immediately the energy would start to come back into the room, and people would start to talk. And the noise level would lift, and the people would start to laugh as they got some dates inside them, and some milk and some water and some juice. And the atmosphere was marvellous. Then there'd be some shaking of hands and some exchange of some stories. How was your day today? Oh, it was a bit tough today. I was suffering a bit during the afternoon. Still, I wasn't a Muslim, but I was enjoying this. So it was between my first and second Ramadans in Turkey that I was finally able to visit mosques. I found I could go into a mosque, ostensibly as a tourist. I was able to visit the famous Osmanli mosques of Istanbul, the mosques such as the Sultanahmet Jami, the Yeni Jami, Sultanahmet and Sulaymaniye Jamis, all these great mosques that have been built by Mimar Sinan. And I was able to enter them, just giving salams to the guy on the door, going in, taking off my shoes, sitting down. And this was, again, another revelation. Sitting in the mosque, whether the guys were praying or not. And I could sit at the back, and nobody really minded. And I could absorb the atmosphere. Of course, I still didn't understand what they were doing. Up to this point, no one had given me a Quran. This is the amazing thing. I could now probably pass a GCSE or a baccalaureate in Islam because I'd read so much, so many textbooks, and spoken to so many people. I knew the life of the Prophet ﷺ. I knew many, many factual things, but what I didn't know was the Quran itself. Finally, one excellent guy, one Erkan Giray, a very fine man, a diplomat, Turkish diplomat, but he was visiting actually. He was, even though he wasn't living in Turkey. He met me and he said, this won't do. You really need to read the proper thing. You need to read the book. And he bought me a Yusuf Ali translation with the Arabic and the English in it, and a decent tafsir, a good quality print. He said, read this. If you read this, then maybe you'll answer a few more of your questions. And so I did. Over some ensuing weeks and months after that, I read the Quran. And of course, I had made some questions, and I had to find a book on hadith. Not easy to find in English in Turkey, but you know, it can be done. And I was able to read a bit more, and suddenly I had a lot of questions. Up to now, I've been satisfied with Islam as a very nice thing that everybody seemed to be enjoying. Everybody seemed to be happy with it, and it was part of their life, but it wasn't for me. Now I'd read it, and I realised, oh, really, this is for everybody. So what's my excuse? I didn't have an excuse. What I had was questions. Thousands and thousands of questions. So in 1997, after a very, very interesting 3.5 years in Turkey, I came back to Dubai through a series of coincidences of people you know and chance circumstances, but yet again Dubai brought me back. At the time I wasn't sure why. I couldn't think why I was coming back to Dubai, but I think I realised soon afterwards. I joined the Belhassa family business, and there I found something a bit special. There I found someone who's your boss and is your friend, and quickly I became very close with some members of the family, particularly Majid Belhassa. And he kind of took me under his wing, and he discovered to his dismay that I'd learned a great deal about Islam, but I had not made any proper use of it. In other words, quite simply, I hadn't embraced Islam. After many conversations we'd had, in the first year I was there. He came to me one day and he said, I think there might be some guys here who might be able to answer some of your questions at last, some European Muslims who have got this interesting idea that they can reintroduce the gold dinar and the silver dirham as the currency of the Muslims on a global basis. I, being an accountant and being General Smart Alex, said, absolutely no way, they must be nuts, no chance, forget it. And he said, fantastic, that's great, because we're having dinner with them tonight, so maybe you can tell them yourself. And I, in combative mood, said, yeah, sure, you know, yeah, I'll sort them out. I'll tell them why it doesn't work. And so we met these guys. There's two Spaniards, one German, as it was at the time, in that group. And we had a very interesting conversation. And this, of course, was the conversation I guess I've been waiting for a long, long time. So I asked my questions. It went on like this. 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. The restaurant threw us out. We stood out in the street. Midnight passed, we still stood in the street. We stood there in Garhoud. The year was 2000, it was May. It was a Wednesday night, and about midnight or so, eventually, one of these guys said to me, so, have we answered all your questions? And I stood there with my hands on my hips, and I looked up at the sky, and I looked down at the ground, and all those things you do when you're searching desperately for an escape route, thinking, I must be able to get out of this somehow. I seem to have been cornered in this argument. And I said, no, I guess I've answered all the questions now. And they said, fine, then you need to come along on Friday and say the Shahada. And I said, what? And by the time we shook hands and left that evening, I'd agreed that's what I would do. Sure enough, that Friday morning, I got up that morning and realised this was going to be kind of a different day. I took ghusl and I went to see them. We had breakfast and we went round to the Grand Mosque in Jumeirah. It was for the Jummah prayer, so the place was full, really full. Now, I don't know how many, more than 1,000 men in there, full up to the outside, inside, everywhere, and the Sheikh was as much surprised as I was to find himself with some white guy from heaven knows where, suddenly turning up to shake his hand, to say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, for him. And we were very happy, and 800 or 1,000 men were also very happy. I was never been hugged so much, I was hugged to death. And I met some people that day who are still my friends now. People I met in that mosque at that time are still my friends on a daily basis now. I had a very crazy day. I went around and I visited people's houses, local people's houses, 2 different mosques, and many things washed over me like a great big wave. And I found myself praying at home the next day and crying, not sure what to make of sure of what I'd done, just knowing that I turned over a big page. Anyway, that page stayed turned. I've never looked back.
واذكر في الكتاب مريم إذ انتبذت من أهلها مكانا شرقيا فاتخذت من دونهم حجابا فأرسلنا إليها روحنا فتمثل لها بشرا سويا قالت إني أعوذ بالرحمن منك إن كنت تقيا قال إنما أنا رسول ربك لأهب لك غلاما زكيا قالت أنى يكون لي غلام ولم يمسسني بشر ولم أك بغيا قال كذلك قال ربك هو علي هين ولنجعله آية للناس ورحمة منا وكان أمرا مقضيا فحملته فانتبذت به مكانا قصيا فأجاءها المخاض إلى جذع النخلة قالت يا ليتني مت قبل هذا وكنت نسيا منسيا فناداها من تحتها ألا تحزني قد جعل ربك تحتك سريا وهزي إليك بجذع النخلة تساقط عليك رطبا جنيا فكلي واشربي وقري عينا فإما ترين من البشر أحدا فقولي إني نذرت للرحمن صوما فلن أكلم اليوم إنسيا فأتت به قومها تحمله قالوا يا مريم لقد جئت شيئا فريا يا أخت هارون ما كان أبوك امرأ سوء وما كانت أمك بغيا فأشارت إليه قالوا كيف نكلم من كان في المهد صبيا قال إني عبد الله آتاني الكتاب وجعلني نبيا وجعلني مباركا أينما كنت وأوصاني بالصلاة والزكاة ما دمت حيا وبرا بوالدتي ولم يجعلني جبارا شقيا والسلام علي يوم ولدت ويوم أموت ويوم أبعث حيا ذلك عيسى ابن مريم قول الحق الذي فيه يمترون ما كان لله أن يتخذ من ولد سبحانه إذا قضى أمرا فإنما يقول له كن فيكون وإن الله ربي وربكم فاعبدوه هذا صراط مستقيم
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد